Hello, Autumn. Welcome to the Autumn group. So I'll give us a few more moments for more people to join. All right, I don't want to give too many moments because we only have exactly 29 minutes left already. There's the time, you'll notice up in the corner, there's a countdown clock of how much time is remaining. So the first step is we have autumn, which is pretty awesome. I figured there's a lot of activities and lots of things that happen in autumn. You know, school starts. So let's work together, come up with some ideas. What are some activities that we can do on the land in, oh, sorry, first we need to pick a month. So does anybody have a favorite autumn month? There's September, October, sort of November. Pretty sure there's more than that.
Not up here.
It's mostly winter here.
Absolutely.
It's April and we have a big snowstorm coming through.
Awful.
Good old Thunder Bay. So October, we want to go with October. So do I have anybody with a different month? So we're going with October unless somebody else has another month, and then we can do a vote, I suppose.
April for me.
That's not fall.
September. Wild rice harvesting usually is done in September.
Oh, so September or October.
Actually, there is harvesting for the month of April too.
Yeah, but I think April would go more with Seguin, with the spring crew. All the months. Thanks, Donis. We're supposed to be focusing mostly on autumn. So what month in autumn do we sort of want to zoom in on and brainstorm activities that can be done? So we have September and we have October.
September's great. Let's do September. If they do rice gathering, if that's when you bring the wild rice, that sounds fun.
Wild rice, yeah. So that was a great one. So let's go with. So we have September with rice gathering. Do we have anybody who really wants October? Like, is there something that happens in the October months that I don't know about? I don't know. I don't know too much about this, so I'm learning with you. No.
I would kind of go with the moons, like, because it's the moons that usually tell us what to do on the land, not the months.
Okay.
The rice harvesting moon, that could be in September or October. It depends. It can cross. So rising is a moon. Rising is a moon. It's an indigenous moon and an indigenous month that goes by that moon, the rice harvesting moon.
That's perfect, because now we don't have to battle September or October. We just go rising moon, which encompasses both. That's yay, better than compromise. All right, so during rising moon, what are some different activities? So let's just come up with a list of different activities that can be done during that time. So gathering rice is one activity, right? Harvesting rice. Did I write that down? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can fix boats, like you can fix the canoes.
Ooh.
So you can gather sap. You also bring the community together. The processing is a big deal.
Processing?
Yeah, because it's like a camp where you have to, well, I haven't been, but my friends told me I want to go. But it's a lot of work that brings the community together to actually process and the harvest, but also the processing.
Oh, yeah, to process like we've gathered all these things, but now what, right? Like he mentioned, that's the next step.
They have to it, they've got to dance on it, they've got like all this process to take care of it, and then distributing it. That is like about science and economy and all kinds of things. Community.
And in the fall is when my parents use porcupine quills from the porcupine. Whereas compared to the summertime, they say that the quills are not very good to work with if you harvest porcupine in the summer because they're too watery.
So they're harvested in the fall, the porcupine quills? Is that correct?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
And then there's the sorting day. But you can harvest too. That's harvesting season. So even like the dyes and stuff for the porcupine quills, you can go out and get some of them.
So back when I did a year up in Bearskin, I remember that the community had a hunters festival in the fall. So for like a 48-hour period, the hunters would all go out at the same time and come back at the same time. And there would be like point systems on what was gathered. And it would bring the whole community together because then all the harvested that was brought in, it gets divided and shared amongst all the families in the whole community. And had a great time hanging out with a lot of elders during that time as we're all together instead of just in a classroom. So that was a I don't know, something along those lines. Hello, Clarice. Do you have an activity that we can do during Rising Moon fall?
I just wanted to add on to your idea of the kind of the fall sort of festival and hunters, and that's usually when folks around here on Manitoulin, they will have a fall festival, and that'll involve different harvest vegetables and preserving foods from the garden, and talking about a community moose hunt and so on, and sharing all of that. And I think people are also working on their nets at that time to get ready for the winter, their fishing nets. Just some other things that we do in the fall.
Thanks. These are great. Anybody else have anything more to add?
You don't, I don't think you get to choose. They put you in, they assign you a group.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Lucy.
I was trying to get into one of the rooms, but
You're in one.
do you have a room? Do you have a group?
This is our group. We are the autumn autumn month or season, and we've gone with Rising Moon as our moon or month-ish. And we just came up with a list of activities that can be done during that time. We got 20 minutes left, so I'm just going to do a quick review of what we came up with, and then do we have one? You can put it in the chat for which activities should we sort of focus on and break down all the different parts, different activities and language, and ways that we can infuse culture and language into that activity. So the activities I have are gathering rice or harvesting rice, fixing the canoes, gathering sap, the process of harvest, processing the harvested materials. So whether it's fruits and vegetables that are then preserved, or once everything's been gathered, and like a festival to process the various harvests. Porcupine quills, harvesting those, harvesting dyes, and prepping or fixing fishing nets. So do we have a favorite that we want to focus on? One that's most interesting? Hi, Donis. I see your camera pop back on. Oh no, you're gone again.
Well, I can't speak to the ricing because unfortunately I've never learned that. So I have no idea what's entailed.
That would be cool. Sorry, who is that? Everyone. Sorry, was that Kelly? Do you have a favorite one you want to?
I have announcements on just a sec.
Oh, the joys of in the classroom.
Yeah, I don't know if, same thing as Clarice, like I haven't gone racing, but I know others who have. And someone put in the chat the Glyphic, Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife resources. And so they have a whole language unit, and it's based on ricing. So it goes through the different stages of ricing. I know a little bit from people's storytelling, and also watching like my friends as they go through the process of ricing. But I think there's a lot there to recognize how the traditions of ricing are actually superior, of our ancestors are superior to commercial ricing practices. And it's something that's visible, and that you can tell the difference in the rice, and you can tell the difference in the harvest, in the ecosystem. You can tell with all the different animals how it displaces. So I think, to me anyways, it's true that way for anything that we do, that our ancestors did. But there is that great resource in the bottom that was put in to the chat by Glyphic by Harriet Visitor.
Yeah, it's a really good resource. Like they have it for different seasons, and you can adapt it to your, it also, if you look through the site too, it has excellent language games on there. It has a teacher resource as well as it has a student resource. And I mean, anything that we have, and this is one thing I'm hoping that we can come away with, is that resource sharing, because there are so many resources out there, and you know, you're constantly searching for them, and it's good to just share them, because it's a, you know, you can just adjust the words to your language. But I really like the way it's laid out in terms of the steps and how you can incorporate the language into ricing and fall the guagan.
So let's focus on ricing. Even if we don't know too much about it now, what are the kinds of things that we would do? What kinds of knowledge do you think we'd need to be doing on the land if we were to try it beyond this really cool link?
Well, there's a lot of videos that are available of our ancestors ricing through the National Film Board that are really, really great to see. At our center, we also have like some like knockers and like poles and like the things that we would use. And I think for me, one of the striking things, I think it was presented to me in our law class, is that Erin Mills handed out the rice knockers, and they were so light. And for me, what it really brought home, what was said there, is that our ancestors, if you watch the way they did it, they were so gentle to the plant, you know. And like my teacher also said, like when people looked at the way that our ancestors harvest, they dropped some into the water and they thought it was a wasteful, because we didn't collect every single thing, but every single grain. But when they knocked it lightly, it could start regrowing. So you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 harvests out of the same lake. Whereas if you do commercial, they cut down but they break the stalk, so you can only do one. And what was seen as waste is actually, you know, respect, because that provided for the other ones who ate the rice, like the ducks who showed us where it was, and also for the plant to regrow. So it wasn't wasteful. It's genius, and is genius still.
Yeah. Exactly, Clarice. Big heart. So trying to remember all the different things that David was also talking about, how all the different parts of what he was about, his topic with the tapping of the maple trees. Does anybody have anything else to add? Like, this is great. I totally agree.
It'd be more the end product of like, we came together because we have a family up here who actually gathers up in Trout Lake. They gather the rice, and they talk about how it's like all in their hair and all in their body. They said it's crazy. It's their whole family event. Bye, honey. Have a good night. And we were, anyways, at the end at the school, we bought it to have a big feast here, and that was probably one of our most successful nights within our building. That everybody, see you, sweetie. Anyways, we loved it. So we had it was a bye, honey. Have a good night. Sorry, guys. Shut my door. They keep opening my door. Anyways, we had a wild rice soup, and we came together to make it. And anyways, that was sort of like the end, right? That culminating task of things. So
and Clarice put some stages in the chat too. Eating.
I love that. That's probably my highlight of all our learning experiences, is that idea of feast. Well, not just because it's good, but it brings community together. It ties us back together, that food. And then I saw this indigenous chef. Her name is Hiawatha. She's from Wikwemkong, and she partnered with an elder as she was cooking a wild rice casserole as a tutorial for people, the elder was translating the entire process. So that could even be a language activity as well as cooking, you know, using the language.
That's so true. That's so true.
Harriet's asking if you have the link. Clarice.
It was a Zoom session. I don't think it was recorded, but I can try to make one again. Reenacted.
We support you.
We do a taste test too that really impresses people with our traditional foods library. We have a traditional foods library. And so we have a comparison. So we have traditional, like native harvested wild rice that we get from our relatives in the States. And then we also have like the commercial rice. And then we like cook it. And like the traditional rice only takes half an hour to cook. But the commercial rice, you have to pre-soak it 8 hours and it's just hard. So it just like, and so, but people like looking at it in the hull and they like looking at it in its form and then they like tasting it. And it's something to, I find it impressive how much care is taken and how much you can tell the difference.
Going off topic, but for the month of June, I always, well, end of May to the whole month of June, I do, because it's Indigenous History Month and then National Indigenous Peoples Day during that month, I do a nation-to-nation visiting with my students. And we look at Indigenous, First Nation, Métis, and we look at food, language, songs, art, we look at everything. So I'm always looking for food ideas. Like I'll post a video on making bannock or whatever, and my students will make it. Like I'm always trying to have them connect and see just how unique we are to the area we live in. So if anyone can share anything like that to NAN, and I would love to I would love to share anything you have with highlights what I call nation-to-nation visiting.
Yeah, so like a NAN cookbook of traditional foods in the area, right? Something like that. For sure. Can sounds like a great idea. So to recap, we have the link that was shared with the lesson. We have National Film Board watching how the ancestors harvested rice and learning a little bit more about modern techniques and comparing it with traditional techniques, learning about that and how respect. So if we want to go in on honoring nature and the land, we can pull that in. Talking about the different tools that are used, talking about the pros and cons of new versus old harvesting techniques, cutting the stalk and taking every single seed or grain of rice versus, you know, the way it was done traditionally. Some might have gotten away, but it all comes back into the ecosystem. We have the end product. We have rice, let's eat it. So talking about cooking, learning the strategies on how to cook it and pulling language into that by teaching cooking steps in using your local language. Having tasting competitions of, is it better traditional or is it better, you know, which is better? I think that was raised as well. Is there anything else that we can do with rice? Any other ways that we can incorporate tradition, culture, or language?
I think to recognize the ones who work with the rice. So recognizing our relationship with the ducks, because there's some stories about them sharing it with the rice, and then also learning about the mick and beaver, and like the beaver's role for caring for those places. And the fish.
I think that's why the animals are mentioned in that unit. You know, they're mentioned in terms of their habitat in that unit.
That could be another nation to nation. The fish nation and the beaver nation.
And then, of course, that leads us all into a whole new different category of learning about the animals and their different environments, how they work together to create a functioning ecosystem, and how science. So got another 4 minutes before we get booted back to the other room. On topic, off topic, anybody want to share?
I just want to thank Donis for acknowledging that G-sheep, because an elder always taught me, you know, don't put yourself first in an Anishinaabemowin sentence. So if I wanted to say I saw a duck in Ojibwe, I could do that two ways. I could say G-sheep Nigiwama, or Nigiwama, which is I saw G-sheep, the duck. But if I put Ngiwama, that's putting myself first. But the animals were here before us. So miigwech Donis for reminding me of that.
Can I have you repeat that sentence one more time? I'm trying to write it out, and I got shishi. But how do you say
I think it's important, like, yeah, I think it's because when we're talking about our young people, it's important, like the way our elders took us out. Like my grandmother, she took us out, and she gave me heck for pulling leaves off a tree when I was just walking by, and she brought me back to that tree to meet that tree and shake that tree's limb and tell me this. And that's the way we are. Yeah, that sentence, Clarice has it there. And that's the way they are. They don't talk about what the humans do. They talk about the animals and the plants and the gifts that are brought to us. And they come first, and we come, you know, after that, learning from them.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and how we can be reminded that we're not, just because we're people doesn't mean we're not part of nature. So I love how it's being brought back in such a cool way, you know. Let's go meet the tree that you've heard, you know. As I think, was it Dave or was it Cass that was sharing the story earlier about how the kids would be playing with the branches, and then oh, I saw a knot in the tree and it looked like an eye. It's seeing me, it's watching me, and all of a sudden it's not a thing, it's a spirit, right? So oh, it's Cassandra. Thank you, Harriet. I remember hearing it sometime. Beautiful story. All right, it looks like we're in our final 20 seconds. So thank you so much for helping, learning, teaching, sharing, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hello.
Bonjour, Manoa.
I left everybody in the dust there. I'm sorry about that. I accidentally clicked you off and I went off into the Ethernet.
Yeah, I think everybody did. Everybody was saying to get off there, it had a notation on there, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
wasn't you, Will? It wasn't you.
Room.
It wasn't your stories.
Okay.
Here we are.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're going to go back to the main room anyways, right?
Yeah, exactly. So everybody back to the main room. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to some of your stories. Martha is there and a couple other people. But we'll go back to the main room.
You are in the main room.
I am in the main room, of course.
Everybody's in the main room now.
Perfect. Here we go. So everybody's here and I just continue. Is that the deal? I think we're looking for our
Jerry with the review of the sessions.
Oh, okay. And I lead that right away? Or is David going to be here to do that? Ah, here we are. Hello.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour from the summer group. What a great time we had in our breakout session there. David, thank you so much for generating so much laughter. We had a great time. I'm the one that left the group early, and I left my whole group back in the bush, and they had to come and find me. So that pretty much sums up how I would make out in the summer camp.
So they have to put their tracker skills to use.
That's right. So thank you to everybody who came out to the summer group. And David, did you want to lead this somehow?
Oh, sure. So my group, I was just taking notes as people were typing stuff and chatting. So our group was Bibon winter. So we there's three months of winter. So we picked Kitchimanitogesis, which is the big spirit moon, and our focus audience was going to be the little ones, K to 4. So our season teachings was, oops, there's a duck coming in.
Where's my gun?
So our season teaching was focused for little ones for listening and explaining that Anishinaabe stories, traditional stories are only told in wintertime. So it would be the perfect time for little ones to hear those stories. And some of the other teachings that were brought up was about wintertime when we use snowshoes in some of the traditional areas. People would design their snowshoes with a certain way so that they would be able to identify each other, what family they came from or which territory they belonged to. So that was pretty neat. So it was like snowshoe identification. And our value teaching was about, because winter is like a new beginning, like New Year's. So it's opportunity for different age groups to reflect on what they would like to see in their life in the coming year. And then we started brainstorming our list. We had a pretty big list. I wasn't too sure if we were going to stop. So we had ice fishing for that time, trapping, beaver, snaring rabbits, under ice net fishing, hook and line fishing. Again, teaching young ones fire safety, around the fire, where the stories will be told. Doing some short walks with the little people in the bush, teaching them names of trees, teaching them some basic sewing skills, beadings, working with big beads probably. They learn some stories about sweat lodge, fasting. They get to learn about the drum. And then also, even in the wintertime, where the kids learn about water teachings, winter medicines, with the assistance of adults, they learn how to make or get to watch how to make mittens, hats. Also teachings about winter, the first snow wash, frost scraping, making moccasins, winter growing. We talked about if it was possible to grow stuff indoors rather than outdoors where it's too cold. Full moon teachings, inside, outside, passage of rites for girls and boys, teachings about the moon time, 7 grandfather teachings. And but when we got to our last task there, the choose one, we were kind of focused, our focus activity, we were kind of talking about the impact of the pandemic. I put limitations on what we could do in terms of doing a lot of these activities. But luckily, we had one person in our group talked about her experience of using Zoom and going out while the kids were watched on the screen as she went out to set snares and catching rabbits out on the trails, and showing on Zoom the kids that were watching, learning how to skin a rabbit and cook it. And they said that not only were the kids watching the Zoom activities, there were also other family members tuning in. So that was great. So it was neat to hear that story, showing that adapting to that limitation of not being able to get the kids out, just using technology as best as it can be used. And then we talked about where's the language at, in terms of fluency, some of the issues around discouraged, getting teased, and how we always must be vigilant to keep encouraging positivity in learning language.
Right. So how long was your session? Because we didn't get near halfway here, that kind of stuff. All right, we're going to switch over to Emma. And Emma, you looked after, was it autumn and fall?
Autumn, the Guagan,
right.
autumn. So we picked Rising Moon because we think that it encompasses both September and October, which are prime autumn months. And so we came up with quite a good list as well of activities. Our list centers around harvesting. So whether we are gathering the rice, as Rising Moon implies, or we're gathering sap during a hunter's festival, so going out and gathering meats and brought back. So having a festival aspect of also learning how to process what is gathered. We talked about gathering the porcupine quills in autumn because it's better quality, and the dyes for various activities, harvesting the vegetables and learning how to preserve them, as well as preparing for winter, such as preparing fishing nets, repairing and preparing that. So we did focus a lot around the harvesting aspect of fall, Daguagan. And then also what you do with what has been harvested. We don't just drop the ball there. So we didn't have as clear grade level or specific items as you had listed so clearly and eloquently just there, David. My apologies. So we tried to focus on ricing itself. We thought it would be a really cool activity, although we didn't have too much experience with those who were present. What our group did have is one very connected Harriet, thank you very much, Miigwech, who shared a link to an amazing resource all about harvesting rice. And it had language aspects and it had all of that built right into it. It was very well done. If possible, could I have Harry share that link one more time in the chat for everybody?
Starting today.
We also talked about seeing what has been done in the past and comparing that to harvesting present. So present, we use big machines and it cuts the rice stalk and it sucks up all the grains of rice, whereas the traditional harvesting, they use very light, gentle tools, collect most of the rice, and you can get multiple harvests of that same plant, which is far more effective and efficient. And it's really cool how much better it worked when you see it as a whole. And that brings me to my next point that we discussed is regarding language. In English, there's generally one way to say a sentence. I saw a duck. Because we use ducks, apparently. The ducks help us find the rice. So using ducks, so I saw a duck, but in the language, animals should come first. So we learned that the sentence order can change. You can say, where did I write it? Shishib Negewabma. So I saw a duck, where the duck comes first, duck that I saw. Or if you do more of a direct translation, it would be Negewabma Shishib. But then we're putting ourselves first. So just different lessons of with nature. So we discussed that, which was really cool. We also discussed the favorite part of all harvests, the eating. So preparing the food. So great language lessons there, where we're preparing the food, but then talking, okay, use this much of this item. And so we're doing the entire instructions on how to prepare the food in the language. And apparently that has been done, and it might be again, maybe. Putting a little hint on my group members that had talked about that. It was, I think, a Zoom sharing initially, and it was, everybody here is like, oh my goodness, that was so cool. So maybe coming again, maybe. So also what was talked about is just the relationship of the different foods that you can make that are traditional foods, more modern foods, and different things. So we just talked a lot about food near the end. I think we're hungry.
Could be.
And of course, ecosystems. So we tied it into science as well, because with rice, we have the animals. We have the animals that help us find the rice, the shishib, and we have the animals that help create the perfect environment for rice to grow, the emek, the beavers. So I think that covers everything we talked about. Miigwech.
Thank you very much, Emma. That's awesome. Seems like you guys covered a lot of ground, and you seem organized. But that probably comes with your professionalism as educators. Me, I'm just an old radio DJ. So thank you to my group. Thank you to everybody for sharing. I see somebody on our chat, Harriet, a visitor to everyone. She says that she's posted I guess a link to language games. This unit has all 4 sessions all 4 seasons with the language games, and you can adjust it to your area and language. So that's on our chat. And of course, everything that you've seen on here remains for 30 days. Our group, we studied summer. We discussed summer and what fun it is for the kids. And I think our target group wasn't the kindergarten, the early childhood students, but kids that were a little bit older. And we discussed different moons, of course. We had a great discussion about moons. A lot of it has to do with berry month. We had blooming month. We had strawberry moon, the loon moon. Huh? I like that one. So yeah, we discussed a lot about different types of moons during the summer, and I didn't know that there were that many, but then I don't know much. But anyway, so thank you for sharing your knowledge of the moon from June, July, and August. We had all kinds of discussions. Somebody was saying, first of all, COVID has kept everybody at home for the last couple of years, so that's been awful. But before COVID, and I guess post-COVID, someone mentioned that community members offered up their own camp, their own hunting camp, their own fishing camp as a resource for schools. So community members, thank you for stepping up and sharing your hunting camp or your camp area to teach the youth during the summer or winter. But thank you for doing that. That is so awesome that we share our property like that, and for everyone to learn. We also learned about, of course, your most typical summer activities, which would be canoeing. We discussed a lot about canoeing and how our elders taught some of us how to canoe properly. Safety, water safety when you're canoeing. Of course, that's important, especially when you're fishing. Safety around fishing. We discussed how to fish, everything from making traditional hooks to using, I guess, modern day hooks, and teaching the youth how to prepare a fish. Catching it and pulling it out of the water is fun, but then they wanted to know how do you scale a fish and how do you cook a fish. And there are different fishes, of course. We've had a good point, I thought, was, yeah, schools out, cultural activities. We had, I think it was Nancy from Thunder Bay, talked a little bit about geese, and I asked her to do a goose call, and she did an awesome goose call. So David, if you see a whole flock of geese flying low around Nancy, that she called them in. Camping and hunting camps, discuss that. Swimming. I asked about traditional swimming, like how did our people learn how to swim back in the day? When I was growing up, of course, we had organized swimming groups, but we had a little discussion about how traditional swimming lessons actually occurred. Cass was part of our group, thankfully, because she had some great ideas about preparing fish leather, how to make fish hooks, fish eggs, a delicacy. We also talked about medicine picking, and that's very important. Birch bark harvesting, that was great. And medical teachings as well. We had a great story where one teacher at a summer camp said, the teachers are going out into the bush and we're going to pretend that we're lost. So the topic was search and rescue. And we're going to hide, but pretend that we're injured. And then the group had to come out and locate them. The group of youth did locate them in no time whatsoever. And they fashioned up a stretcher out of, I think, pine boughs, and then lifted the teachers out of the bush and brought them back. Then they even knew how to set the leg that was pretended to be broken. So that was amazing. Boating, water safety, medical activity, first aid, right? That's what we're talking about. Water safety. And of course, storytelling is so important at any time. But wouldn't it be nice if we were all sitting around a campfire right now with David leading us with some storytelling, and maybe Larry Beardy could pop out of the bush and tell us a story or two. story is too as well. So that's what we kind of learned in the summer breakout session. So all three of us, thank you so much to Emma and David for doing that. And I'm wondering if David, if you have some words to wrap up your session or this particular breakout session.
Yeah, thought that was a nice group. Got a lot of important topics that we covered and shared from different areas, different points of view. And somebody had mentioned earlier, you know, your learning never stops, and we're constantly learning. There's always somebody that has, you know, knowledge we're seeking, and hopefully, you know, we can continue on this path of bringing back our original education back to our students, whether they're in the communities or in the towns and cities. And once we reach them, then they can start teaching the rest of the world. You know, this is the original way of how we're supposed to be living on our Mother the Earth. So I thank everybody for tuning in and sharing. And miigwech bisindawayak yeah. Wow.